I am Charlie Craver. I'm a law professor at George Washington University, where I teach negotiations, and I'm going to be talking about the new edition of my Effective Legal Negotiation and Settlement book, which will come out in early 2012. What I've tried to do is put together a very practical book. Many books on negotiation talk about how negotiation should work in an ideal world where there's no puffing, there's no embellishment. I try to deal with negotiations as a real subject, what I learned in practice, what I've learned in many years teaching. Most people think of negotiations as unstructured interactions, and I lay out the 6 stages of the negotiation process so people know what they're trying to do in each of those stages, the cooperative and the competitive negotiator styles, different negotiation techniques, verbal and nonverbal communication. But the most significant thing I try to do, I try to make it a very realistic course talking about how lawyers actually negotiate in the real world. I try to make it practical as well as theoretical. We deal with psychological aspects such as anchoring and gain-loss framing and regret aversion and how that affects us when we negotiate with other people. But I try to make it real. I have several exercises in the book itself. I have a teacher's manual with a very significant number of different exercises where you can use those exercises to demonstrate the concepts in the book and to demonstrate to the students how differently they evaluate the same exercise. And the results vary not by 5 or 10%, but by 5 or 10-fold. It never ceases to amaze me. And that's when they begin to appreciate how important negotiating skills are. In the teacher's manual, I have a number of negotiating exercises, and I have other exercises that teach different things like the prisoner's dilemma and how people can cooperate or how they can refuse to cooperate. I have other games that teach people the importance of anchoring, where if I start with a number that's very generous to you, instead of moving toward me, you actually move away from me because you begin to think you're going to do much better than you anticipated. Whereas if I start with a less generous opening position, you tend to lower your expectations. We talk about gain-loss framing, where if I offer you a sure gain and the possibility of a greater gain or no gain, why you're likely to be risk-averse and take the sure gain, whereas if I'm offering you a sure loss and the possibility of a greater loss or no loss, you tend to be a risk taker, hoping to avoid any loss. And so I have that type of exercise. I have some international negotiation exercise, human rights exercises. I have a United Nations exercise where I divide the students into groups of 5, representing the 5 permanent members of the Security Council, where they're trying to negotiate whether to expand the Security Council and increase the number of permanent members, and whether they will then change the veto rules, where each of the 5 permanent members can now veto any proposal before the Council. Should they require 2 votes? Should the new permanent members have veto authority? I hope you'll give serious consideration to this book because it is a very practical as well as theoretical book that deals with negotiations in the real world. And if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to call me or send me an email. I'm very happy to talk about how I teach the course, how I grade the course, and why I think it's such a significant course for all law students.